147 passengers turned as clear as glass after exposure to an unknown chemical. A plane flying from Hamburg to Boston hits a patch of turbulence, causing panic among the 147 passengers. Morgan is the most anxious, feeling sick from the stress. Trying to calm himself, he finds an insulin syringe and injects it into his stomach. Moments later, his condition worsens, and he gets up from his seat to head to the restroom. The plane is shaking violently, and being unbuckled poses a serious risk to his life, something the flight attendant urgently warns him about. She catches up to him and stops him, but she's shocked when she sees his face. Immediately, she reports the issue to the pilots, and one of them decides to check what's going on. As soon as he opens the door, his appearance changes, and it's clear that an unknown chemical has spread throughout the cabin, turning the skin of all 147 passengers and crew members as clear as glass. Olivia and John are FBI agents spending the night at a motel. As lovers, they have to keep their passionate relationship hidden from their superiors since workplace romances are forbidden. John admits he's fallen for Olivia and wants to take their relationship to the next level, but their conversation is cut short by a call from their boss. He informs them about a suspicious plane arriving from Hamburg and orders them to head to the airport immediately. As soon as Olivia leaves, John gets the same urgent call. When they arrive at the scene, Charlie tells Olivia that the plane lost contact a few hours ago, entering the country's airspace without any notice. It created a massive disturbance. The military scrambled 2 fighter jets, but their pilots were stunned by what they saw. The plane's windows were splattered with blood, and there were no signs of life. The plane landed on schedule, guided by autopilot, but no one knew what was happening inside. John soon arrives, followed by the operations supervisor, Philip Broyles. Olivia has a strained history with Broyles, as she once initiated an internal investigation against him that led to his dismissal for illegal actions involving 3 women. Thanks to Olivia's persistence and determination, she's granted permission to board the plane with the rest of the team. Suited up in protective gear, several FBI agents step inside and find the passengers' transparent bodies, visible only by their skeletons. It becomes clear that a synthetic chemical was used on board, but who released it and why remains a mystery. To avoid a public outcry and media frenzy, the FBI burns the plane and all the evidence, except for the bodies of the victims, which are secretly transported to a morgue for further examination and analysis. Back at the central office, the agents work to gather all the necessary information and push to retrieve the plane's black box to understand what happened just before the incident. Philip doesn't want Olivia involved in the main investigation and assigns her a less important task. He tells her to check out a report about some suspicious men seen in a district, supposedly selling cases of some sort. Despite her frustration, Olivia has no choice but to comply and heads to the old warehouses, accompanied by John, who insists on joining her. Alone together, Olivia finally admits that she loves John too and wants to spend the rest of her life with him, but they need to focus on the job at hand for now. At the scene where the suspicious men were spotted, the FBI agents find several empty ammonia canisters, realizing that the situation is more complicated than they first thought. Breaking protocol, John forces his way into several storage units for a search. Inside one, he discovers a hidden lab that looks capable of producing chemical or biological weapons. Olivia decides to report this to their superiors, but there's no cell signal, so she has to return to the car to use the radio. Meanwhile, John comes face to face with the suspected owner of the underground lab. The man tries to escape between the old containers and storage units to avoid arrest. John quickly informs Olivia about the situation and asks her to help catch the criminal. At one point, they manage to get close to the suspect, but it turns out to be a trap. The man triggers an explosive device, blowing up several warehouses. John is caught in the flames, while Olivia is thrown dozens of feet away by the blast. A while later, Olivia wakes up in a hospital and learns what happened. Fortunately, John survived, but he was exposed to chemicals that made his skin turn transparent. The FBI agent's life hangs in the balance, as doctors are helpless until they can identify the chemical elements found in the lab. Desperate to save the man she loves, Olivia sets out to find a way to help him. After hours of researching scientific articles and materials, she finds Dr. Walter Bishop, the only person with deep expertise in chemical weapons and countermeasures. Olivia tells Philip about her discovery, but he's skeptical of involving a scientist who once secretly used a university basement as a lab for human experiments. To make matters worse, Bishop has spent the last 17 years in a mental institution, and only family members are allowed to visit him, which Olivia is not. Despite these complications, the head of the operation gives Olivia the green light to do whatever it takes if it leads to a solution. The first thing Olivia needs is someone who can grant her access to the former scientist. Walter's only close relative is his son, Peter, who's been hiding out in Iraq due to legal troubles and shady dealings. Knowing this, Olivia tracks him down and asks him to help her meet his father since he's the only one who might be able to help with the situation involving the plane and John, who was injured in the explosion. Peter refuses at first, but Olivia blackmails him, revealing that the FBI has a file on him that could easily land him in prison. She also hints at having personal information that could be used against him, leading to even worse consequences. Afraid of the threat, Peter reluctantly agrees to help Olivia and returns to the U.S. to grant her permission to meet his father. When they arrive at the psychiatric hospital, Olivia meets Dr. Walter Bishop and explains the situation. The medication has severely affected his brain over the past 17 years, causing him to frequently lose focus and appear genuinely insane. Despite his behavior, Walter still possesses a brilliant mind and knows things no one else does. He understands what's happening to John's skin and what occurred with the 147 passengers on the plane. Walter is willing to help, but only if he can meet his son. Peter initially rejects the idea since they've barely had any contact all these years, but Walter makes a genuine attempt to reconcile. He agrees to save John but only on the condition that he be released, which can only happen with Peter's written consent. Once again, Olivia has to resort to blackmail to get Peter to comply, securing Walter's release. On the way to Boston, Olivia tries to figure out if anyone had access to Walter's research and scientific materials, as he had described similar processes in his work. Walter reveals that his colleague and friend, William Bell, was well aware of all his experiments. Today, William is a billionaire and a successful businessman involved in cutting-edge technology and the development of unique products, both for everyday use and military applications. Peter is shocked by how drastically life changed for these two men, with one becoming a success while the other ended up in a mental institution. Back at the base, Olivia asks Charlie to arrange an interrogation with William Bell, but her colleague argues that it's impossible due to Bell's high status as a businessman. Walter examines John's body and scrapes off a sample of his transparent skin for analysis. Peter is uneasy seeing his father holding a scalpel, but Olivia trusts Walter completely and allows him to do whatever he deems necessary. Walter insists he needs his old lab to conduct the research and experiments, but since his institutionalization, the lab was shut down and repurposed as a storage facility. This revelation sends Walter into a fit of rage, making Olivia realize that she must do everything necessary to support Walter, as saving John has become her only priority. After a conversation with Philip and some pressure on her part, Olivia manages to get the university to return the basement lab to Walter, allowing him to use it as a research facility once again. With the lab returned to him, the scientist asks for the necessary materials to carry out his work, including blood samples and a cow for experiments. During their conversation, Olivia admits to Peter that she blackmailed him without any real evidence or leads. Peter isn't upset about this because he secretly has feelings for her and confesses that he's in trouble due to debts to a notorious crime boss, which is why he didn't want to return to the US. After conducting initial research, Walter concludes that John's skin condition is not caused by chemical weapons but rather a mixture of synthetic chemicals. The only way to help him is to identify the specific chemicals that were in the lab, which will allow them to create an antidote. John has only a day to live, so they need to act quickly. Researching and identifying the chemicals could take months, but the scientist has an alternative option. He can perform an experiment that connects Olivia's consciousness with John's. This would enable them to communicate with him in a subconscious state, uncover the truth, and even see the face of the perpetrator, aiding in his capture. The plan is outrageous, but Walter has conducted similar experiments before his hospitalization. Olivia is willing to do anything to save her loved one, so she is unafraid to put her life at risk and agrees to the experiment. As expected, William Bell firmly refuses to be interrogated, and his legal team is capable of defending him without any formal charges. With time running out, Olivia undergoes the procedure for subconscious communication. She is connected to computers and placed into a sleep state. Dr. Walter does everything necessary to synchronize Olivia and John's minds. At first, it seems crazy, but Olivia manages to penetrate the subconscious of the FBI agent. Not only does she speak with John, but she also persuades him to show her the face of the escaped criminal. Seeing Olivia's condition deteriorate, Peter interrupts the experiment, but Olivia learns everything she needs to know. Upon returning to headquarters, she creates a composite sketch of the possible suspect and requests a background check against all existing databases. It soon becomes clear that the suspect is Richard, Morgan's twin brother, the diabetic passenger who used insulin. They realize that the unknown chemical was in the syringe, which triggered the epidemic on the plane. Discovering that Richard's last place of employment was William Bell's company, Olivia heads to the billionaire's office. However, he has been out of the country for several weeks, so she has to speak with his secretary. The woman owes her life to the businessman and insists that he is not involved in Richard's experiments. Moreover, she reveals that Richard was caught attempting to steal classified information, which led to his termination. After some time, Olivia manages to pinpoint the possible location of the criminal. She heads to his apartment with a team of FBI agents and requests that Peter and his father join them to speak with Richard and learn about the list of chemicals stored in the secret lab. While Walter and Peter have their first conversation as father and son, the agents break into Richard's apartment, where they discover another lab. The criminal uses a hidden exit to flee the scene, but Peter notices and starts a pursuit. Olivia also tries to catch Richard but falls from a great height. Peter manages to capture the criminal, and Richard is taken to the interrogation room. Richard refuses to talk or reveal the list of chemicals, denying any involvement in the events. Peter, feeling sympathy for Olivia, decides to help her and aggressively interrogates Richard, threatening to add one of the chemicals to his water. The threats and intimidation force Richard to reveal everything he knows. The scientist receives the list of chemicals stored in the lab and realizes how to create the antidote. However, he cannot administer it directly, as that would only worsen John's condition. Olivia reminds them that every FBI agent has a supply of blood stored in the lab for emergency transfusions. This changes everything, as the scientist can create the antidote and mix it with clean blood, then perform transfusions to stop the disease. While Walter and Peter work on saving John, Olivia steps away to avoid interfering. Philip tells her that the current situation is just an isolated incident, but there are many strange events in the world that defy rational explanation. People vanish and reappear after 30 years without aging. Some speak of teleportation, while others discuss the creation of new biological weapons. None of these cases fall under the FBI's jurisdiction, but Olivia could participate in a special project called Fringe and involve Walter to expose the criminals. They are changing the world, and her goal is to prevent a catastrophe where the wealthy can control people's lives. Olivia is shocked by all this but declines to collaborate, believing her only important mission is to save John and help her colleagues. Walter and Peter perform a complex operation, achieving success, which causes John's skin to begin regenerating and returning to normal. Soon, he is transferred to a regular hospital, where they inform Olivia that he will be fully recovered in a couple of weeks. Determined to find out to whom Richard sold the chemical weapon, Olivia decides to interrogate him again. The criminal reveals that he refused to cooperate, only demonstrating the extent of his abilities at the expense of his own brother. Moreover, he claims that one of the FBI agents, who works for the corporation developing chemical and biological weapons, threatened him. Upon learning that Richard had recorded all of his conversations, Olivia returns to his apartment. After searching the place, she finds cash, fake documents, and a tape with an audio recording. Listening to the conversations, Olivia is shocked to discover that the person blackmailing Richard is John. Remembering the evening they arrived at the airport, she realizes that the man she loves is working for a corporation trying to dominate the world. Olivia calls Charlie and asks him to place security around John and Richard's hospital rooms until she arrives. Meanwhile, John leaves his room to eliminate the unwanted witness who could expose him. The FBI agents arrive at the hospital, but John has already disposed of Richard and escaped the scene in a stolen SUV. Olivia begins the chase, still struggling to believe her eyes. The traitor is the man she loves, but now he is a criminal she must stop. During the pursuit, John crashes and asks Olivia to think about why she was sent to the dangerous criminal's hideout before he falls into an eternal sleep. Heartbroken over the betrayal and the loss of her loved one, Olivia realizes that the criminal world has changed, and the FBI is powerless against it. She decides to join the Fringe project and asks Peter and his father to stay in the U.S. for collaborative work. Walter wants to leave, knowing something terrible is coming, but Peter is too in love with Olivia to refuse her. Meanwhile, William Bell's corporation receives John's body and sends it to the lab for a series of experiments to study the deceased's brain. The foundation of these events lies in the consequences of scientific experiments that have spiraled out of control. What obligations do scientists have to society when they manipulate the fundamental forces of nature? Should they be held accountable for the misuse of their discoveries, even if their original intentions were good? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.